Hello and welcome back. I'm so happy you're here. Oh my God, I think my coffee just kicked in. One of the questions I get asked all the time is how do you get into reading, or how do you get back into reading after a reading slump? I know I said one question and that was two questions, but as I often say, this page is about books, not math. Are there YouTube pages about math? We will investigate that later. So today, I thought I would give you some of my favorite tips for getting out of a reading slump or getting into reading for the first time. Let's get started. Note to self, don't ever do that dance ever again. So tip number one, and really this one goes out to the people who are getting out of a reading slump, is to reread a book or series that you know you love. So for a lot of people, this might be a book like Harry Potter and even the series. I think a lot about when I was younger and used to go to launch parties for Harry Potter and how it really, gave me that excitement about reading. Like, reading is exciting. Harry Potter does that for me. Maybe for you it's a different series like Percy Jackson or something like that. That's a great way to get back into reading. I also know that there are books that I can reread really quickly because I've read them a couple times now and they always reignite my passion for books. Beartown is one such book. Every time I read this, I leave the book thinking, wow, books are amazing. I need more books to be reading. Is that a sentence? What? My point is, if you already have a book that you love, but you're in a reading slump, why not give that book a reread? Here's the great thing about a reread. You don't even need to finish the book. Maybe you read halfway through and you're like, you know what? I feel really excited about reading. I'm gonna go read something new now. And that's totally fine. You've already read this. You don't have to finish it all the way through. Maybe you just read your favorite parts. Maybe you just read the beginning and then you read the ending. Maybe you just read the spine. That might be pushing it. Tip number two, regardless of where you are on your reading journey, be it beginning, middle, or end, does that mean you're dead? I don't know. Chances are you have a genre that you like. And if you're just getting into reading, think about the genre of movies or television that you like for this. Now, go to Goodreads or Amazon or wherever you get your books from and look up that genre and look for people's favorite books in that genre. Now, here's the thing. Just because a book is popular doesn't mean you're gonna love it. But if thousands of people have rated a book very highly, there is a much higher chance that you will enjoy it. There was definitely a time in my life where I had a really hard time getting back into reading, and I did just this trick, which led me to find a book called The Night Circus. I love fantasy, I love historical fiction, so I looked for a book that kind of fell into all of those things, and that's how I found this book. This is a standalone book, and reading it was so exciting to me that it got me back into reading. Tip number three, get a reading buddy. If you're having a hard time reading, chances are someone else around you is too. Think about when you go see a movie that you love. What's the first thing you want to do when you get out of the theater? You want to talk about it. That's honestly why people want to go see movies with other people. It's not because you're gonna talk and enjoy it in the theater, unless you're planning to make out during the movie, in which case, that's an entirely different video. The point is, when we get excited about something as human beings, we want to be excited with other people about it. That's why fandoms exist. So find a friend, whether it's a new friend or an old friend, that might also be into reading, pick a book and read it together. That way, as things happen in the book, you can discuss it and get excited about it and nerd out about it together. It's also good for keeping both of you motivated for reading. How are we going to talk about chapter 3 if you don't read chapter 3? I mean, you could always make it up. Yes, my favorite part was when the grapes were wrathful. Tip number 4, choose a lighter book. Listen, I love me a heavy, big, ginormous book, but that's not always the best for getting out of a reading slump. Instead, try to choose something light and fun. If you were getting into film for the first time, I wouldn't recommend going out and watching Citizen Kane. I would tell you to go watch something fun, something exciting, something that you can eat popcorn and laugh and cheer at. So try to find something in that 300 to 400 pages range and try to avoid any book that is described as a slow burn. Tip number 5, I think we're on 5? Who even knows at this point? Not a math video. Join a book club. Now there are many book clubs. There are book clubs in person. There are book clubs online. There are clubs physically made out of books that you could hurt people with. I don't actually know if that exists. The great thing about a book club is it's like reading with a friend, but on a much bigger scale. Now you have a whole group of people to talk about the book with. Book clubs are also sometimes nice because if you're joining one, chances are you don't have to pick out the book. So someone else is gonna pick out the book for you, which alleviates that whole process. One of my favorite things about book clubs is that oftentimes the people picking out the books will pick out books that I never even thought to read, and then I'm exposed to a completely new kind of literature or book. And that's really exciting. Book clubs are also a great place to meet hot dates that you can then go to the movies and make out with. No, shut it down. That's a different video. That's not what we're doing here. Unless. And finally, tip number 6, or possibly 7, or 5, I don't know. If you're getting out of a reading slump or getting into reading and you're reading a book that you don't like, do not feel bad about putting it down and reading something else. Reading is supposed to be fun. If you're reading a book and you're not having fun, it's time to put that book down. One of two things will happen. The first thing that might happen is you'll pick up another book and enjoy it a lot more, and you won't be forcing yourself to read something you hate. The other thing that I have had happen before is that I put a book down that I'm not enjoying and come back to it several months or years later, and suddenly I like it. Just like people, sometimes we meet a book at the wrong time in our life, and sometimes we meet a book at the right time in our life. And if it's the wrong time, it's okay to put it aside and come back to it later. Folks, that is all my best tips for getting out of a reading slump or into reading for the first time. If you have a tip I didn't mention here, make sure to leave it in the comments. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and I think there's a notification bell you can turn on, and you can probably have a dog whistle at you when I post a video. I don't know how it works, but I'm sure that's a service that is provided by someone. Thank you for watching, and happy reading.